you're like very wise beyond your years. I feel like I yeah, I mean I also feel like since you've been in the activist space, like you've it's been a fast growth. I feel
Mhm.
like because I think like we talked about activists going through that life cycle, right? And sometimes it can take a while, but it seems like you have kind of gone through several different stages and learned a lot and got to that next level, I guess, of whether it's self-awareness or world awareness or whatever it is pretty quickly. And it's very impressive to just to hear you tie everything together from your background to where you are to music to what's on in the world now. It's yeah, I have to say it's very impressive.
You know what it was, Rena? I think like being a Black girl in movement spaces, I didn't really have a choice. Like
Mm.
I I feel like for the past, like since 2020, like since I took a step back from organizing, I've just been sitting back and just realizing like I went through a lot of hardship that I had no business going through as a 14-year-old, as a 16-year-old. Like
Yeah.
I really did. Like I was like 20 years old being told that full-blown adults were scared of me. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
those are the environments that I was in. And so I don't know, like I really didn't have a choice of when are you going to make sense of all of this? Because it was either like I was going to continue feeling anguish every single day, or I was going to find peace within myself. And I had to choose the latter if I wanted to like live a good life. So yeah, like I think when you put it in perspective like that, it really has been fast. But I didn't have a choice. And I think that like I also keep that in mind a lot about how young people are really being tasked with changing the world. And it's like we're just young people, like we just want to have fun. Girls
Mhm.
just want to have fun, like, so I I think about that a lot, and I think about how crucial it is that we preserve our youth, and we actually get to be children, because sooner or later, like that time is gone, and all you have left is like the remnants of that. And for me, I had to
Mhm.
sift through a lot of like sadness. Like I was deeply sad, but it was because like for the longest time I wasn't being taken care of. And I would say that's a huge inspiration, or yeah, inspiration for me, is like remembering how deeply uncared for I felt. And now it's like, okay, like I need to make sure that I make people feel cared for, and that I'm actually infusing care into everything I do, because I want people to feel good. I think that's the basis of it. Like everybody wants to feel good. And if I have the power to do that, why not? Like that's just how I see it. So, but thank you though. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I often think about because when we were working, there were high school students, coming in, and then there were people of all different ages, and you do kind of think about it. And um, when you've gone through like a longer activism life cycle, I guess, than a lot of young people, and especially young people that have been disenfranchised, go through, I think you end up having a lot of people that give up or they get tired, by the time that they're older, and then it becomes, oh, the young people will take care of it, and which is not necessarily the right move either. Like you have to be supporting the young people, and like you said, making people feel cared for, and finding whatever life stage you're in, trying to find that role in uplifting and these movements. So it's none of it is an easy task.
None of it. None of it.
Really, but
But I think we really have to be serious about getting past that and actually like talking to each other again. And because people are really lonely. Like, so
yeah.
I think I've become more conversational as I've gotten older. Because I used to be a Grinch. I hated small talk. I hated talking to people. Like, I was like, "Ugh, don't talk to me." But now I've gotten better. And I find that people are so taken aback when I just ask them how they're doing, which tells me that this is such a rare occurrence that by me showing you just an ounce of human compassion, it makes you feel so special. Now, that sounds really nice, but that's also really dangerous, because now imagine you're sitting at your laptop or you're sitting on your phone and you're feeling really lonely. And all of a sudden you see this video that's like, oh, hey, you want to know why that girl doesn't like you? And you're a young man and you're on your phone and you're like, why? Why doesn't she like me? Because women are evil. Oh, that makes sense. Let me keep on scrolling. Like, let me keep on engaging with this video. And yeah, like that's actually what's happening. You know, like people are lonely and they're going on their phones and they're finding community or a false sense of community. And then they're being funneled into like this pipeline that's turning young men into really violent misogynists. Like, this is what's happening. And I've actually seen this. Like, there was this one guy I was dating and he seemed normal at first. And then he started talking like really strange things, like really like conspiracy level things. And like, I can judge him and be like, oh, that's so weird. But like, I have to recognize like, this is bigger than him. Like, this is a systemic pattern we're seeing play out across the United States. And I think what was so compelling about him as I was experiencing him was like, he wasn't always like this. And he didn't come from a family that believed in any of the things that he believed in. He got it all from his phone and from watching YouTube videos, from watching Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tate and all these people. And he has been successfully funneled into this pipeline where now he was spewing misogynist things and not even realizing they're misogynist. And I think that's what I keep thinking about, is like, the stakes are really high. And like, you know, I really have to do a better job of actually talking to people and connecting with them. Because if not, like, there's definitely other people waiting to snatch them up and to bring them onto a wholly different worldview and ideology.
Yeah, a lot of these, and I've read a lot of these stories, and I think you're right. It doesn't come from the family of origin. And from hearing that, people are getting funneled into these pipelines because they read or hear one thing, they watch one thing, and then it goes to the next and the next, and they go down that path, which is which is scary in a way that I think it wasn't, before. Which I think a lot of the responsibility also lies in these algorithms that are, because they don't have to be built that way to funnel you down all of these pathways.
They don't have to be, but why wouldn't they be? Like, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the internet is the internet. That's what it is. And I say that meaning, like, if you look at how the internet is designed, you have probably like 3 tech companies that have a monopoly on the internet, right? And they are run by white men, or even if they're not run by white men, the values of those companies have not even changed. So even if they're no longer run by white men, those values are still infused in the company. So, and not only that, not only about the identity portion, but white supremacy makes a lot of money. Like, it's a very alluring economy. Like, because it doesn't require that you're changing anything. You're just continuing to feed the machine. And so it's like, why wouldn't I design this algorithm to drive you further into this rabbit hole when all that means for me, my bottom line is I'm just going to get more ad money? Why wouldn't I? Like, it's easy. It's easier than designing something totally different than you. So why would I exert more effort in a capitalist society to do that? And I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we shouldn't even concern ourselves with like, this should be like this, because it's not like that. And it will probably never be like that for real. So like, you have to, like, I feel like we have to get to, sometimes we have to like take a step back and recognize like, okay, this is how it's working. And this is like, they have these are the advantages of continuing it to operate like this. So if this is how it is, what can I do to intervene? Like, what can I do to actually shift or put a stop to how this is running? how can I serve as like, I don't know, like the glitch in the system. I think
Mhm.
sometimes that sometimes is the more refreshing way to approach some of these issues is don't beat at the brick wall, go around it, like for real, because a lot of times like there's no getting through it. Like you kind of have you have to figure out actually there's no how do I say, sometimes you can go through it, but sometimes you have to go around it, sometimes you have to go over it, sometimes you have to go against it. And so you have to figure out what is that unique solution to this unique issue. Um, so yeah, that's my thought.
That's such a great point, because I do think it can be you can get hung up on the like, well, this shouldn't be like this, and how do we
Yeah,
change? And you're right, like sometimes you just can't, because that's the way it's been built, and it's been, the system is so old and it's been built like this for so long that, yeah, like coming up with ways to be a glitch in the system, or to, to subvert it in other ways. I think that's probably gives some hope too, because if you can at least do that, do something, if you can't tear down the whole thing,
yeah.
that's worth something.
But I
You've
think
given me
right
a lot of
now,
hope.
sorry, go ahead.
You've given me a lot of hope. I mean, I follow the news cycle, of course, all the time, and you're just like, oh, it just gets worse and worse, right?
Yeah.
But we don't tell stories like, and of course that's intentional, it's never going to be on mainstream, but hopeful stories of people connecting, people thinking of different ways to do things.
Yes, I saw this tweet by this woman. Her name is Derica Purnell, and she was just like, "Don't you ever get tired of hearing how fascism is taking over the United States? Like, don't you ever get tired of like only hearing back to back, oh, like critical race theory taken out of this school, critical race theory taken out of here? Like, don't you ever get tired of that?" And she was like, "I want to hear the stories of resistance of people who are, erecting freedom schools and students that are rebelling and staging sit-ins because they can't not allow this for this to happen anymore." But I think where we are right now as a culture is like, we think this issue is so deeply entrenched, this issue is so long standing that I can't do anything about it. And that is intentional. Like you said, we don't hear these stories often. I wonder why. Because
Mhm.
when you also have journalism now that is also run by a monopoly of certain media companies, yeah, I'm going to directly control the narrative that is being delivered to the average person. So no, I'm not going to tell you about that person running a freedom school. And honestly, like, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but honestly, I actually think it's maybe a good thing that like some of these acts of resistance aren't being publicized, because in an age where
Yeah.
information is so readily available, sometimes the best thing you can do is be a maroon, is be the person that's off in the mountain somewhere, um, you know, running a farm that nobody knows about, and you're kind of like helping people in your local community. You're feeding them, you're informing them of what they need to do when the end of the world comes. Like I have this I was in Puerto Rico in January, and I actually met this guy who has a farm. It's I think this like about an acre of land that's been in his family for like 50 plus years, and he's now the new benefactor of it. And he's just running this farm, and he's like, yeah, like we're going to start having fellowships here where people can come and learn about the land and how to take care of it. And that's really radical, because who is going to farm the revolution? You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what it's making me think about, is like, yes, we do need to hear these stories, but not on TikTok. Like, maybe
Yeah.
like face to face, like let's talk about it in private, in that way. But yeah, I mean, the world sucks right now, but it doesn't have to suck. But I think in order for people to know that, they need to experience something new. And I think that's what Dirty Girl is trying to do, is show the girl something new.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important. And I think also, yeah, to your point, if it's something that's local in the community, it's yours. It's not going to get co-opted by and twisted by whatever other forces
Mhm.
are at play. So there is something really powerful about that too, of things that are face to face. And yeah, even going back to that print, sometimes something that's just doesn't exist on the internet, but maybe there's a handout or a zine or something that
Yes.
people are passing around. Who was that? I think it's Ralph Nader has a, like, now it's like a print, it's a print copy that they're only doing, and they're sending it to people that want this print copy of this publication, and they decided not to put it online because they didn't want either it to be buried or co-opted or whatever happened. And so I think that's really interesting too, the swing back to like, let's do this face to face, or let's have a printout instead of having everything online.
Yeah, a lot of activists got really frustrated after 2020, because what happened in 2020 is everybody was following all these activists. Everybody was engaging with our work. Like, for the first time, a lot of us were getting thousands of likes on our posts. And I think people thought that was going to last. And so now I've seen a lot of activists, they get frustrated when they're not able to reach, their audience, or they're not able to garner attention on their posts. And it's like, to your point, maybe it's you have to go around the issue. Like, maybe don't go through it. Like, stop engaging, or stop posting, or like stop expecting something out of this platform, and go around it and actually like give people a zine, actually engage with people firsthand. Because I think for a lot of people, our only distribution tools are TikTok, our Instagram, which is really disempowering because we don't own any of these things. Like, we can't control how many people we reach. And it's like, so if you can't control it, and you probably know it's not going to change, like, because how long have people been beating down Instagram's door talking about, I want the regular feedback, and we still haven't gotten it back, So if we know that Instagram has no real benefit to doing that, then why keep beating the horse over the head? Like, go around the issue, build your own thing, and talk to people directly. So yeah, I agree with you. I feel most inspired right now by people that are finding ways to directly connect with people, and new and innovative like methods, because I think that's the future. I think the future is offline, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it almost has to be for our sanity, because humans at our core, we're social creatures. So, it's like, yeah, some of these tools and things they're good, online, but to be completely 100% consumed by that, like, and then when you're talking about the metaverse and like some of the things that I've heard about young kids like living in the metaverse, and I'm like, that sounds like a horrifying dystopia to me. Like, kids need to go play outside with their friends. Like, I feel like no matter what, that shouldn't be lost, that connection between people.
Yeah, and also our safety too, because in a world where information is so readily available, like, there comes a time when like they can really track anything, like, and I don't know, like, I just find it really sinister that our attention now is for sale. Like, that's really wild. Like, our attention is currency. And so it makes me wonder, like, okay, like, will my breath become currency? Like, will my daily movements become currency? And then it becomes a question of, how will people now attach value to that? If let's say, for example, I am more valuable in a society where walking is really valued, right? So let's say like I average like 20,000 steps a day and somebody else averages 1,000 steps a day. Then it becomes a question of, okay, like, if that person is not producing enough steps, what happens to that person? And then it becomes a question of, okay, like, how are people with disabilities being impacted by this? And who's inherently valued in our society? And again, I think, to go back to what you're saying very early on, it's like, we come into activism because we're asking all these questions. And I feel like we're stuck in a place now where we're asking questions, but not really staging new solutions. And that's really dangerous, because now you just have people talking at each other, but not to each other. And so, like, what? We're all just going to sit here oppressed, but talking about how oppressed we are.
Yeah, it does certainly feel that way. And then
Yeah.
even all these different labels, and then the label gets co-opted. We're progressive, and then that gets and I think after everything I've seen and everything I've taught, like, I'm like, I don't want to be labeled anything. I just want to do the thing that doesn't harm people and helps and makes the world a better place. And that can be a combination of things. Doesn't have to be my idea. It doesn't like just whatever the thing is, let's do that thing. And it doesn't have to be, maybe it's not something we thought of before. Maybe it's new. Maybe it's a mix of things. And I think people they get so bogged down in like these certain labels, or like they learn something new, maybe you read something new, and it's got to be this or bust.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, can we just all, like you're saying, let's talk it out. Let's figure out what do we need to do to be a thriving society for. And I think you're right, for the people that have been most harmed and most disenfranchised, if you can uplift those people and they're thriving, then the rest will come.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. And I think like, I don't know. I think it's also like, how do we relate to each other? Like, how do we go from being individuals to now being two people that actually fuck with each other and actually like are being affected by the same things and want to do something about it? And I also think too, it doesn't have to be anything big, and it's also not always going to come immediately. Like before I finally arrived to Dirty Girl, I had been working at this for like 10 plus years. Like since I've been an activist since I was 14. I'm 24 now. Like it's been a long ass time, and it's been filled with like failure and sadness and anger and just feeling misunderstood. But like all of that was like me learning more about the people around me, the world that I'm in. Like it was really crucial for me to actually just like chill out and experience life. Like to actually like again, I say it's field research, like to actually do that field research, figure out like what's actually happening here. And then now, like I actually feel ready. Like I actually don't have any concerns. Like the other day I was like, everything feels so easy right now. But it's because like I feel so certain, because I've kind of I've just been like going through the cycles of like kind of understanding not only who I am, but who we are. And now it's like, okay, like what am I going to do with that information? And I think I also just feel like a sense of urgency. So there really is no time to be unsure of myself. I kind of just, I've had that time. I had the past 10 years, to kind of build up that fortitude. And I still have time, but I think now is just like, I'm so glad I feel grounded in who I am and what I'm doing, because the stakes are really high. I think that's all I can say. Like the stakes are really, really, really high. And I don't mean to sound doomsday, but I mean, look around you. It's already here.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I live in Los Angeles, and it does feel very dystopian at
Yes.
times. And then especially when you go in my area and you go to city council meetings and you see like how long change takes and how things are blocked and the simple things that you just can't get through, and you're like, why is this going to take 10 years to do this simple thing that will help people like not get, like we're talking about traffic, like people get hit all the time in the road. Can we fix that? Like because our traffic infrastructure is bad. Well, it's gonna take this, that, and the other, and I mean like 20 years. And I'm like, yeah, all of it is just you're right. Everything is so urgent. And then you think about these just simple things, right, that you could implement to make day-to-day life better, and how challenging that is to kind of try to accomplish within a system. And so yeah, I think you got to keep pushing, but you need some hope
Yeah.
also.
And that hope is gonna come from like like for example, like I always like talk to my Uber drivers now. And it's not every time that I'm in the back of an Uber, but most of the time now, like I'll be like, hey, how are you? And that's all they need. Like they'll start talking. Like, and I think when I do that, I learn a lot about the state of the world right now, what people are going through, what's important to people, what our values are. And it also helps me feel a little bit less lonely, because I be feeling lonely sometimes. Like, honestly, the types of viewpoints I have, looking at me like, girl, what are you talking about? Like, and which is fine, but like, it's lonely, and I think also being a young person that has, at this point, like, I've done a lot of things that a lot of people my age just have not experienced. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's a blessing, but it's also been a very lonely experience in doing that. And so now, like, some days, like, I'm actually really chill. Like, I'm really at peace right now. Like, I most days I'm just chilling. But like, sometimes, like, I feel lonely and I need that company. And so it's like, rather than like trying to find that escape online, like, I could really just ask you how you're doing.
I
That's
have
it.
to tell you, it's funny that you say that because I don't drive. I'm one of the rare people out here that doesn't drive. So when I do have
Hey,
to like,
that's a difference, Seth.
yeah, like, so yeah, when I have to go somewhere that's like you can't take the bus or whatever, like
Yeah.
I'm always in a Lyft or an Uber, and I like one of my favorite things to do is engage, and I will ask people like your coming to LA story. I love a good, and so it depends because some people came from another country, some people came from another part of this country, and it does really help you connect on that level. And I've learned so much. And because there are a lot of immigrants here too, you really get a nice sampling of how different people feel about this country, and people that have been here for years and how they feel about it then versus now. And, people that have come more recently. And it's so interesting. And yeah, I said I would never get that experience otherwise if I didn't just talk to drivers. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're the first person that said that, that they do that too.
No, people, anyway, I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's just a human thing to do. Like, how are you? And I think also too, the energy matters too. Like, because you could say, how are you, and be really closed off. Like, you just kind of know it's not going to go
Mm,
nowhere. But I think, like, I guess I don't see it as a job either. I generally am interested. And so I kind
mhm.
of just like it's this openness and this like genuine interest in the other person that I think also allows for that type of connection to occur. Um, yeah, because I think what's also been really weird is like, I've been talking to my friend about this, but I feel like a lot of relationships have been HRified. Like, it's like there's a certain way you need to say this, and there's a certain way you need to say that. And it's like, okay, like, I didn't know we were robots now. Like, but you can feel that in interactions. Like, people are just very rigid and not very open, I guess, to like the possibility of life, which is really chaos. Like, life is just chaotic. Like, anything can happen at any point in time. And I think it's our job as like humans to kind of just be like open to that and be ready for when it happens. But you can't control it. You can only just be ready. So you don't gotta get ready.
Yeah, yeah, you're right with the language shifts. You're right about that. I've seen some of that in writing, and in some of the media spaces that I'm in. Everybody's so carefully curating this language, but then you also realize, well, most people, if they're not in this writing space or even in an activist space, they don't know this language, and they're not going to use the right
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
And you can't fault them for not knowing this carefully curated language that a small group of people maybe spent a long time in a room trying to figure
And that's
out.
really how it be. Like, for example, white privilege as a term, it took a lot of time for that to be developed. And I forgot her name that developed. Her name is Peggy something. She developed the phrase, but it took a long time for her to come up with that theoretical framework. Like, it wasn't just like,
Mhm.
it came up in a day. And then it took an even longer time for that framework to proliferate in pop culture. But it's fascinating. Like, you're right.
Mhm.
Like, it really is somebody really thinking very deeply about this term, and then that the life cycle of it developing. But to be honest though, Rena, I can't really blame people for being so rigid, because I also think people are just scared. Like, we do live in a culture where if you do say the wrong thing, you're out of here. You're done for. Like, and don't get me wrong, for some people, their time has been up. It's time for you to kick the curb. But for other people, it's like, just got here. Like, maybe we can work things out a little bit. I don't know. But I think people are generally very scared of being ousted from community. Because if you're like, think about it, if you're already feeling very lonely and now you're just ousted from community, wow, like what is there to even live for? Like for real. And I think a long time ago, maybe not a long time ago, a couple of years ago, I was with a friend of mine, an Indigenous activist, and she told me this story that that was really compelling for me. I don't want to say too much about it because I want to respect the privacy of her culture. But she was basically just telling me about like what happens when we oust people from community. If you think about the first colonizers that came to the United States as it's known today, we learn about the pilgrims, right? Like we learn about these religious refugees that were coming from Europe and seeking refuge somewhere else. And she was just like, but think about it. They were kicked out of their community. And so when you kick somebody out of a community, when you oust them and you say you are no longer welcome here, think about how you're making that person feel. And those emotions are fermenting. Like you probably made them angry. You probably made them vengeful. You probably made them incredibly sad. And so now they're going to take that out on somebody else. So now when they arrive to the United States, or quote unquote the United States, they're not going to have good vibes. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to try to connect with the Indigenous people on the land. Like they're going to try to take it over because they have nothing else. And I'm not trying to humanize what they did. Or actually, maybe I am. I don't know. But I'm not trying to like belittle what they did either. But I think it's just recognizing like when you really break down issues at the most basic human level, a lot of times things happen because people did not feel good. Like, hurt people do hurt people. You know what I mean? And it's like, when you out somebody from a community, think about what that really means. Like you are cutting their lifeline to being social. And if humans are social creatures and you're taking that lifeline away, what do I have to live for? Why not just be incredibly violent? What do I have to lose? Nothing. So I think that's how I think about it now. It's like, what really happens when we kick somebody out of a community?
That is such a good way to think about that. Yeah, a very interesting perspective.
It really changed me. I was like, wow, that's deep.
Yeah, it is, because you don't think about those, because when you hear the real story, you're like, why did that happen the way it did? Why not just build community, or coexist peacefully with people that were already in this space? So that is a really interesting way of thinking about it. And I had a friend that was asking me, that said the other day, oh, everybody has something that they'll be canceled for. It's like, what's the thing? And I'm like, at this point it is probably true. You never know what is that one opinion or that one thing that you're going to say that you're going to get canceled for, and that's not a great space to be in either. It's like, let's teach, let's try to connect, let's try to correct where we can instead of just canceling.
And you know what, too, though? I think what's really scary is I think we know it as canceling through pop culture, but when I really think about it, I feel like it's a microcosm of fascism. Like, and I call it microfascism, which is because we're experiencing fascism on the systemic level, which is, you really like, which is like your movements and your actions are being controlled, whether you know it or not. It then begins to seep into your personal relationships, where like now, if you do not fit into this perfect micro niche that I have developed, then you can be ousted. And it makes sense because there are so many micro niches to be a part of. Like, how many times has someone been canceled and then they just reemerge as something else? It happens all the time.
Mhm.
But it's because they have options. Like, they can do that. Like, they can jump from one community and then cause harm in another community. And I think what we're seeing is this new way of relating to each other, where everything is disposable, because that's how we're treated on a systemic level. So if I'm treated like that and that's okay, then why wouldn't it be okay to do the same to you in our personal relationship? And I think that, of course, it has like its disastrous effects, but like that's kind of the land of the law now. And like we see it from the most extreme things to the smallest things. But like it's happening. Like even with voting, like if you like if you're not voting, don't talk to me. I can't fuck with you politically, because what are you doing? And if you are voting, get away from me. Like, what are you doing? I can't fuck with you. Meanwhile, the right, they voted.
Mhm.
They're building power. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, like it's so complex. And there's so much that goes into it, because we could also talk about how our lack of rituals also allows things to be more disposable. But like this is our environment right now. Like it's scary times. It's scary times.
Yeah. It is one of my favorite campaigns that I've worked on with a group of volunteers at getting out money out of politics, as we did a vote and campaign, and we were like, okay, you voted, but also, what is this other thing that you're gonna do? And and I feel like it has to be a like, okay, do this, and it's not either or only this, or let's find just all other ways to do things and contribute. And that was a really rewarding part of that activism and connecting with so many volunteers and of all different backgrounds, and them coming up with fantastic ideas. But that was, I didn't see anybody else put something out like that, but we were like, okay, vote, and then you're not done, like pick something else, and it could be anything, whatever issue you care about. It can be hyper local, it can be national, international, whatever it is, just pick something else and stay engaged. And if you care about these things, don't just leave it at the ballot box.
Don't just leave it at the ballot box. And also like don't also dispose of people who don't go to that. Like, because like it's just, you see what I mean? Like it's like everything now has become this identifier. And if you do not carry this label, you are not allowed. And I don't just want to say to the left is the only place in the political sphere that this is happening. It also happens on the right, and it happens quite violently too. But it's like, we're supposed to be creating new alternatives. Like we're supposed to be creating new ways of being. Why are we just replicating the wheel? Like what's going on? Like where is the innovation? Where's the newness? Where's the hope? I don't know.